Hi, my name is Father WILFREDO Contreras, and I am the pastor of San Isidro Church in Pompano Beach, Florida. And today I wanted to share with you, and because I'm doing a series of teachings while we're in this middle of this pandemic, on the topic of relativism, and specifically moral relativism. In my priestly ministry and dealing with young people, I'm beginning to see how, as the Pope St. John Paul II and Benedict XVI have said about the dictatorship of relativism. And I'm seeing it steeped, especially in our young people today, especially those who have received college education. And I'm going to go into this moral relativism and some of the issues, what exactly it is, and how that pits up with objective truth. So this is a very important topic. To begin, many of us have experience with lying, haven't we? Most of us have lied, even a little white lie, to get out of trouble or to make ourselves look better or to impress someone. Many of us also share the experience of someone lying to us, and no one likes to be lied to. It always hurts to learn that someone was lying to us. There is something attractive but never fulfilling about lying. When we lie, we feel guilty because we substituted the truth for something that doesn't exist. When we are lied to, we get upset because something we have a right to, which is the truth, was withheld from us. So what is truth? We crave and seek the truth. People, they dedicate their entire lives to understanding the truths of the universe. Philosophy, which we priests are required to study, seeks to understand truths of human existence. But we often do not ask ourselves the simplest question: what is truth? It's a tough question to ask. How would you define truth? What does truth come from? How does one determine and uphold the truth? Can truths change? Is the truth really as easy as black and white? And if so, how do we know which is which? These are good questions. There are many things inherently that we know to be true regarding good and evil. We know that the deliberate and intentional taking of a human life is a serious and grave matter, and in most cases, as we know, it's an evil action. We know that stealing from another person is wrong. And when we lie, how do we feel? Don't we feel guilty? All of these points to an inherent natural law that's within us. We understand what is good, and also when we know something is good, we then should pursue it. But then, what is evil, we should avoid it at all cost. We can say that since God is the author of truth, and that God does not change, then there is an objective truth. Objective moral truth cannot change with time or public opinion, as most relativists think. A simple way to understand objective truth is by using simple math. Think of the equation 2 plus 2 equals what? You said 4, right? Yeah, you're right. That's objective truth. If we take 2 things and then add 2 more things, we will have a total of 4 things. It would be foolish to argue that mathematical truth. We can't make up a new truth and say, hey, 2 plus 2 is 9. Or we can't say, hey, it's true for me that 2 plus 2 equals 4, and it's true for you that 2 plus 2 equals 9. Someone's right, someone's wrong. So we can never change objective truth. 2 plus 2 will always equal 4. Times, circumstances, we can fast forward 1 billion years from now, and 2 plus 2 will always be 4. But what about areas that are not so black and white? What we call gray areas. What about areas where people disagree? God did not simply leave us to stumble in the dark seeking out moral truth. It's too important for God to leave us on our own, simply guessing what is right thing to do, what's the wrong thing to do. Jesus Christ, the Son of God, reveals moral and divine truth. Jesus' teaching is the foundation for moral truth. Jesus established the church to guard these truths and continues teaching them. Even when times change, the church will always continue to teach the truth. The church exists as a moral authority, a moral teacher, and she guards that truth. In a world where things do not always seem so black and white, the church will always offer guidance. So an objection to this understanding of truth is that it seems judgmental or that it limits freedom. Many people argue that the church is restrictive and oppressive when it comes to moral issues. They argue that people should be free to make their choices about what is morally right and what's morally wrong. We think that freedom means having the ability to do whatever we want, whenever we want, without thinking of the consequences. It is summed up in the phrase, I can decide what is right and wrong for me, and no one can tell me I'm wrong. Freedom is not the ability to do whatever we want. Freedom is always about choosing what is good, what is right. The second argument is that the moral teaching of the church is judgmental. People respond to church teaching with, hey, don't judge me, or only God can judge me. There's confusion with our language when we talk about judgment. Some people confuse judgment with condemnation. A judgment is making a determination on whether or not something is good and true, and then living our lives according to that. A condemnation is when we look at another person and say, you are evil. In our faith, we judge actions, not people. Is that clear? So we can judge things that they're doing that's wrong or right, and then we say something about it. But we cannot address and assess the person, because we're all made in the image and likeness of God. Everything that God has made in the book of Genesis, he said whatever he made was what? Good. So we can never judge the persons. We can assess, however, their actions. We cannot be afraid to call sin what it is, sin. Sin kills us spiritually and cuts us off from communion with God and with one another. Now, both of these objections can give rise to something called moral relativism. Moral relativism means that there is not necessarily an objective truth, but that moral truth is relative to the culture, the times, and specific people. Basically, it says that some things are permissible because of the time in which they were done or because of what the culture teaches. In this view, all things can change. Have you heard the expression, hey man, this is the 20s, the 2020s, get with it? That's a relativist statement, and we have to be very careful. Some people even argue that each individual can make their own truth. This is not to be confused with an opinion. We are free to disagree, for example, about what sports team we cheer. The Marlins, the Marlins, the Giants, whatever you want to, we can choose whatever we want on that. Or the foods we like. I like Chinese food. No, I don't like Chinese food. I like Italian. We're free to do that. But if two people argue and one says that the death penalty should be widely used and the other one says, no, it should be banned, both of them cannot be right. Only one can be right. Right? When we buy into relativism, we accept the belief that what we as Catholics believe as true is only true for us Catholics. But what someone else believes as true is true for them. Truth then becomes a matter of personal taste. And that can't be. But truth cannot contradict truth. What happens when two people believe, for example, contrary actions are both good? What happens when someone thinks a dangerous action is actually harmless? We heard that recently when the president was trying to tell us about that in the midst of our pandemic, that we can take certain disinfectants and inhale them. And that will make us better. Really? Well, the health expert said, that can kill us. This is an example of these contradictions. Let me give you a dangerous example. Let's imagine someone sees a movie where an individual is struck by lightning and suddenly receive superpowers like Superman. Suddenly they can fly and go through walls or whatever. Based on the movie, he thinks that if he goes and sticks a fork into the nearest electrical socket, he's going to be electrocuted and then get these electrical powers and become a super person. He thinks that is true, that he will get those powers by doing that because the movie showed him that. But the objective truth is, the truth that exists regardless of what he or she thinks, is that he or she is going to get electrocuted and cause great harm to him or herself and even death. That's objective truth. We can figure it out. Our responsibility to that person is to stop him or her, regardless of what he or she thinks, from hurting herself or himself. We don't look at him and say, well, he's free to believe whatever he thinks and whatever he wants, and he's free to do whatever he wants. Who am I to tell him that he's wrong? See, that's how a relativist thinks. And a lot of us think that way. Many of us would feel comfortable doing that. In other words, telling that person that what they're doing is wrong and it could harm them, because we understand electricity and its effect on our human body. But we may not feel as comfortable talking about the moral teachings of our faith. Why? After all, by our virtue of our baptism, we are not only priests and kings, but we're prophets. And what do prophets do? Prophets always tells the truth. Whether you like it or not, tough love, I got to tell you what's right. And I know that if I tell you the truth, you probably get mad at me, you will reject me, you can even hurt me, physically assault me, or even kill me in worst case scenario. So that's why a lot of us have this human respect to say, oh, I'm not going to say anything to him or to her because I know that I'm going to lose his or her relationship or friendship if I say something. No, we can't do that. We're only harming those people more. We have to speak out. In today's society, one can see areas where moral relativism has been established. The legalization of abortion, the legalization of same-sex marriage, and the redefinition of what a family looks like or should look like, the prevalent use of birth control in our culture, in vitro fertilization and sterilization, certain laws against migration, just to name a few. There's more and more, but the list is exhaustive. These are examples of how our culture has steeped into what St. John Paul II says, the culture of death, the culture of the dictatorship of relativism. So what should we do to combat moral relativism and relativism? The first thing we need to do is, in order to feel comfortable in speaking out against moral relativism, is to form our own conscience. We have a responsibility to seek out truth and to form our consciences. We must make informed decisions to always seek the truth. We must conform our lives to the truth. We don't want to live lies. We can't live our life knowing the truth and then living it in denial of it, as we have seen in these immoral laws such as abortion that have become so steeped in society. See, if we do not form our conscience well, we will lose our moral compass. When this happens, we enter into very dangerous territory. Just because we do not call something sin does not change the character of the act. It is still sin. It's still sinful. So as people of faith, we have a duty to seek out objective truth. Anything other than the truth is misleading at best and a lie at worst. Not only that, but it can be a very dangerous lie that leads people away from God and into damnation. So there are several ways we can form our consciences. First, through what is taught through the Bible, through Scripture, and also the commandments of God, the 10 Commandments. Also, we can form our consciences through what is taught in the Catholic Catechism in the Church, and the magisterial teachings as well. Also through the teachings of Jesus Christ as found in the Gospels. Also through the teachings of the popes, the bishops, the pastors of the churches. Also through the teachings of saints and theologians. And all these resources are readily available online. So if you want to know, what's the church's view on pornography, make sure you say when you Google, say, Catholic Church's view on pornography. And then you'll see a bunch of resources that are there. Make sure you put Catholic, because if you don't do that, you may get other perspectives that are not from the church. So we can't just pick and choose the parts of the faith that we like or parts of the Catholic moral teachings that we agree with and live by this as though we are in a cafeteria. Oh, I'll accept this and this and this of the church, but I refuse to accept that from the church. Our church is one as you accept all or none. Simple as that. So we always need to seek out and understand aspects of our faith. So the moment we begin to prefer one truth over another, or start to write our own truths, our spiritual life will get very unhealthy. And you know what? When we start formulating our own truths and what we think is right, we make ourselves God. And you know what? What's the first commandment? That I am the Lord your God, and you shall have no other gods before me. So you have to be very careful with that. So my beloved family, stay away from moral relativism. Form our consciences. I already showed you some of the resources. One great resource out there is going to formed.org, like forming, formed.org. They have great resources out there for a subscription. I think it's like $10 a month. You can get all these resources right there online and form your consciences and be able to then to inform yourself so that you can inform others. So my beloved family, I hope you enjoyed this video. Okay, I plan on doing another teaching on the Eucharist, particularly on our understanding of the real presence of Jesus Christ. Shocker of shockers, last year we had received a Pew Research study that said that 70% of our Catholics don't believe in the real presence of Jesus Christ in the Eucharist. No wonder why there's all this lack of reverence that we've been seeing lately. So I'll be giving you a teaching on our understanding of the real presence. Well, I hope you enjoyed this presentation. It'll be uploaded soon, and you can make any comments you want there. And with that, I finish, and I bless you all in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Thanks for tuning in.